Yeah, no, I have it, and I've sent. I know that landowner stuff. I'm here.
Can I get everybody to take their seats?
But that was 15 years ago.
I know we're missing still a couple of people, but I do want to go ahead and call to order again the workshop session of the Transportation Board. Just to let you know what's going to happen this morning is the governor will be joining us here in about 25 minutes. I'll probably go back in about 15 or 20 minutes and to meet him in the hallway. What I'll do is then he'll walk in and I'll introduce him. And I've got that right here, as a matter of fact, and then he will make his comments. I suspect there will be a press conference or the press gaggle for him to answer questions afterwards, and so help do that. And then after that, we'll resume the workshop session, because I do want to explain in more detail the governor's announcement to the Commonwealth Transportation Board, because he'll give the highlights of what's going to happen. But I do want to take time to let you know not only the details of the transaction, but also how the parties were involved. Because here at the end of a administration, I want to make it clear, the announcement's been in the works for quite a while, but I want to make it clear that this was not as a parting gift one way or the other to the incoming administration. In fact, work closely with them on that also. So that's how it will go. Why don't we start, Jennifer, you want to start with going through your few things?
Sure. Sure. And just a few updates for you all on some items that we've presented previously. I know yesterday Secretary Lane mentioned the Metro L Safety Commission, which is a interstate commission that we are working on with Maryland and D.C. We have appointed our 2 commissioners to the MSC. One of them is a former chairman of the NTSB, and then the other one is a transit safety expert who's spent about 20 years with the American Public Transit Association as their lead on transit safety policy across the country. We're still waiting on, Maryland has made their appointments. We're still waiting on DC to complete their appointments before we can hire an executive director, but we are in the process of doing that now. One other update too, I know a couple months ago we presented to you on the intercity bus program, and this is a new route. It's a new pilot program that we're doing to expand intercity bus throughout the state. But this first route that we have links Christiansburg, Harrisonburg, Dulles Airport, and Union Station. We had over 1,000 users last month, and our fare box recovery ratio was much higher than we expected. It was actually 57% as opposed to 50%. The majority of the trips, about 80%, were actually people that were going up to Dulles Airport and Union Station. And for people going in the southbound direction, the majority of them were going to Harrisonburg and Blacksburg. We actually had so many riders on the 21st that we had to add a second bus. So we're very pleased with the success of that service, and that's it. That's all I have for my updates right now.
Okay, I know I saw yesterday we all received the presentation that Paul Wiedefeld gave to the Transportation Accountability Commission yesterday, so you should have all that. So, you know, again, should be well briefed as at least on the most significant issues that will be dealing with WMATA funding. And on that topic also, there were a few more, and maybe we ought to have Joanne come back up, but there were a few more pieces of legislation dropped last evening, and as she surmised. And so I think it's going to be an active year in terms of transportation, and everybody's got ideas on where these resources should be put. So anyway, so we'll maybe have Joanne do that also. Now I'm going to turn it over to Charlie. And by the way, Charlie and I will have some probably more detailed comments about, you know, this is our last meeting, but that'll be after, and we'll do that in the actual agenda session where, you know, after all the business is done and stuff. So we're just going to do our normal updates now. And I know he's going to talk a little bit. We opened this morning the I-64 reversible lanes, express lanes, and Charlie will go into more detail, but I was on the phone. It looks like $1.25. Ms. Hines was the high toll for the morning. But here's the great news: over 75% easy pass penetration, which was very, very good. So, Charlie, why don't I turn it over to you, and you give a little 75%. More. Yeah, give you a.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. As you mentioned, today was toll day 1 for the HOT, or 64 express lanes in Hampton Roads. If you recall, 64 in Hampton Roads between the Naval Station at 564 down to the 264 interchange has a reversible lane set similar to 395 and 95. It's been in place for decades, and it's been a fairly underutilized asset. It's HOV2, and working with the region, we began to develop a project to convert it to Hot 2 with provisions for extension of that facility using the existing what we call diamond lanes, which are directional HOV lanes in Hampton Roads at some point in the future. All of the projects that we are working on in Hampton Roads, high-rise bridge, the HRBT, Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, and the 64, and some of the 64 work is designed to accommodate future express lanes in the region. So today was toll day 1. As the Secretary mentioned, the high toll was $1.25. The low toll is 50 cents. We saw a high easy pass use in the lanes, which is which is fantastic. That's been a challenge in Hampton Roads at the downtown Midtown Tunnel, getting the numbers up. They've made great progress in that area, but getting more easy pass utilization. But again, we're, as with the 66 project, it's the first day. And the first day, you know, we really need some data to come in to really to see what how it's acting and how the motorists are reacting. But the goal of this project from the beginning was to give people travel choices and to give them a reliable trip. Today, in the general purpose lanes, in the mornings and in the evenings, they do tend to get pretty congested from 64 or 264 up to the Naval Station. And this is just another option and opportunity to improve travel there. I will say that this was in some ways not as complex as Northern Virginia in terms of technically, but in terms of something new to Hampton Roads. This is the first time we've had a hot facility in Hampton Roads. So for culturally and for the public, this is a first, and that in itself presents significant challenges. I want to thank the team, which is the engineers and the technical folks that do the work that sets this up. But just as important has been the outreach through communications. Grinley has helped considerably down in Hampton Roads, but the communications staff both here in Richmond and in Hampton Roads done an exceptional job getting the information out. And to our tolling folks, to John Lawson, our CFO, and David Caudill, our tolling director, you know, again, great work in making this happen and making a pretty complicated thing look pretty seamless. So great work by the team. Again, we look forward to getting more data over the coming weeks and continuing to refine the system down there. Thank you.
Just a couple comments on that, if I may, Charlie. Probably unlike Northern Virginia, I suspect that the rush hour in the evening may generate the higher tolls just because of the way that traffic flows down there. But nonetheless, we'll be monitoring that today. Some anecdotal information to receive. We had one guy clocked at 92 miles an hour through there, so I'm sure that helped to raise the speed limit up to over 55 miles an hour through the hot lanes in that. So we got some enforcement issues to work out because in that regard. But overall, and the traffic in the free lanes was about normal. Didn't see a whole lot of increase in the speeds there yet. Averaged about 15 to 20 miles an hour. So hopefully we'll see as people, I actually think with all the publicity that came out of the tolls in Northern Virginia, that, you know, because remember the first couple days up there, I think, you know, people were not used to the tolls and the whole bit, where I think that helped people down here. So, well, maybe I'll better wait and see before I try it. So, because it did get a lot of publicity down in from the Northern Virginia. Now, and as we've seen up there, that the average toll has in Northern Virginia has continued to decrease in that as people have adjusted. Now, Charlie made a great point. We got a long ways to go on both these facilities to make sure there can be adjustments that can be made and will be made depending on how the traffic is flowing in there. But a great start to that, and we'll see the afternoon. And you know, again, hats off to VDOT because in both cases it looks like they got the traffic right, although that makes the traffic. Let me point that out too. I mean, in Northern Virginia, there's 10 actual legs or entry points. People use it a lot more differently. This is pretty much 8.5, almost 9 miles. Either you get on or you don't. So it's not the decision making in Hampton Roads is either take it or don't take it, and you're going to go the whole length for the most part. Where in Northern Virginia, there's 10 segments. People are going north, south, east, west, using it differently in that regard. Now, I should mention while Charlie, do you have any more? Did you?
No,
okay,
that's it. Thank you.
Some more. Okay. A couple things that while we're on this topic, and I don't, the questions I got from the Accountability Commission yesterday about specifically on Interstate 66 inside the Beltway, would we consider reverse tolling on the peak rush hours? And as you recall, that was originally planned, that was part of the compromise we reached, and I pointed that out. And as a matter of fact, the expansion was moved forward instead of being waited for triggers. But I did see that there were several people pushing for the reverse tolling. Also, additional monies on if we could put for either a transit, particularly long-distance transit, and I did remind them that we'd already funded $10 million, but I'm sure they could consider other things if in that regard. And the third was additional park and ride lots. And of course, all of this is to be done with the monies that we're generating from the tolling. So in that regard, so all those are planned, but just wanted you to be aware of the few things that were highlighted. And of course, we did have the one to say, can we stop tolls? And that will probably one that won't be acted on. And then, you know, the hours, and of course the hours again, really depends on the traffic flow. And good analysis on, as we showed you yesterday, that the alternative routes are actually functioning better than 66 was in those extended hours before. So hopefully the people will be able to find alternatives to that. So that's an update from yesterday, at least the session that I was in. Also point out to you that we have done our level best, and I don't see Shannon, I know she's down at the General Assembly, but done our level best to make sure that we have cleaned up everything or not left anything hanging in regards of reporting or anything here at the Transportation Board. Certainly, there's a lot of stuff to do. You've got a lot of things going, but in terms of issues or outstanding projects, a lot of those we've made sure they've come to a logical, either a conclusion or a place to pass on in that regard. So I just want to make it publicly known that we've been working, and of course, you know, to make sure that the new administration can seamlessly keep moving versus having to deal with some outstanding issues in that. So I think that, and of course Shannon has been announced several weeks ago, so we've had a chance to talk quite a bit in going through that. I think in terms of, did you mention anything, Governor's going to talk about, I'm sure a little bit about Atlantic Gateway, Jennifer, but we continue to still talk with CSX, and I think we talked last time about the railroads and where their position was, particularly at CSX. Now, since that time, the president, unfortunately, has passed away. We don't know if that's going to change any of their positions, but we'll be going down. Jennifer and Shannon and I will be going down to speak with them about, you know, if there's additional opportunities with them in regards to the 95 corridor and, of course, other corridors, but particularly the 95 corridor because it's so important to the Commonwealth in terms of not only passenger rail but our freight movement. So just wanted to update the board on that, that we continue to work, but don't have anything to really report as progress, but we do know that they've received some pressure from the federal government in terms of trying to work with the state. So we'll report, I'm sure Shannon and Jennifer will report back once that happens. So Governor should be here in a few minutes. Before it comes, any questions? I'm sorry.
I had just one follow-up on the 64 Express project, and that's the apps that we have developed for users of both the 66 and the 64 facility. You just go to the App Store and you can download 66 Express or 64 Express. You put in your direction of travel and the time of day that you expect to be there, and it basically will not project, it will not anticipate forward yet, although we're working on that, but it will tell you what the toll rate is at that time, and it will tell you what the toll rate has been. And I just checked on 64 the project, just to, again, those systems are up. It's just another tool for our citizens to be able to get information real time about what's going on. We'll continue to work with Waze and other partners, finding ways of pushing out that kind of information real time on various mediums, so that, again, it's about giving people travel choices. And so I'd encourage you to, if you have any interest in traveling the express lanes in Hampton Roads or Northern Virginia, it's a great tool.
Yeah, I should have pointed out too, we intend to do exactly what we've done in Northern Virginia, make all these data available so that the public, the press, anybody can go on there and analyze the data. We'll get press releases out like we did in Northern Virginia just to let people know how it's going, but it will all be posted online so that users can look at it different ways to determine what's best for them.
I have a question since
Yes.
we're talking about, as we build the hot lane network out in Hampton Roads, I know we were studying from 664 to Jefferson, potentially including that in the network. Have we completed that study and have?
In fact, and this came up, Senator Wagner brought this up yesterday too, the TPO has unanimously advocated for hot lanes at Hampton Roads, with the exception of what you just mentioned. What we said was they were not against it. We were going to do the study and show that it would improve the travel in the free lanes, which I think it will. So, no, that has not been completed, but it's ongoing in that regard. Also, the decision, this came up as a question yesterday, the decision to monetize the hot lanes network when it's been completed has not been made. It's just been something that would make some sense. Unlike Northern Virginia, Hampton Roads needs to build out its hot lanes network. Some of the parts individually are not as great as the whole once it's built out. So that's why we're developing it from the state's perspective. In Northern Virginia, it made sense to do more with concessionaires up front because there were longer stretches and different deals, but not so in Hampton Roads. So, but that decision has not been totally made. It'll be a lot more public hearings and we've got a lot more construction to do, but it just there is a plan. Okay, yes, plan. So just wanted to, I know Nick, I just saw Nick come in. I know he's working with the TPO on that. John. Grinley, is Grinley back there?
She's in the hallway.
Yeah, I'm supposed to meet the governor out there. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and just suspend, because he's supposed to be in a few minutes, and we'll resume as soon as the governor gets here. So don't go too far away, but I need him to walk him in to do his introduction on that stuff. So. Oh, and I should mention, Governor will be, is she here? Yeah, I know. I was going to mention that. There'll be a film crew with him. They've been following him around the last couple of days. So, yeah, so Grinley, would you give me, when you know, I'm supposed to meet him and walk him in. So, yeah. All right. So, give me a heads up when he's here.
We're going to do him at the end or when he's here?
And that stuff. Okay. So, at least I don't have to go back. Yeah, the governor has been, in fact, you know what, Carol, there is a booklet of the governor's 4 years and his accomplishments, and transportation is very much prominently in that. So would you I'll make sure that we get the CTB members a copy of what he has done, because transportation is a big part of the governor's legacy, and you all should be proud you played a large part in that. But yeah, he's been followed with a film crew the last few days, just documenting a lot of the things that he's gotten done over the last few years, 4 years, I guess. And the governor, I've never been shy. I'm sure he'll remind us of that today when he comes and talks to us in that. So looking forward to that. So. Sorry a little bit, but he's usually, he was up when I left, he was up preparing for the, his speech this evening. And that's up there, so.
It takes 19 minutes. I don't want to run it.
Anybody want to sing or anything?
Greg wants to sing.
Yeah.
A little reveal for you, if you don't mind.
The only thing I would say, maybe we could save it until. Okay, well, let's do that real quick then, okay, a reveal. I was wondering what all these shirts are going on here, so that's right.
You will receive them, but there's a very famous quote we'd all like to reveal to you right now, so I think it's...
Oh.
Mr. Secretary, you can read it here.
All right, so at least, so I need to wear that when...
Words that we will never forget.
Wait a minute, you know, you got yours on the front. Yeah, I was going to say, well, thank you very much. That's nothing else, y'all remember to do that, so thanks very much. That's interesting, so. Oh, here we go. Well, can I tell you, this was second place to what I really wanted to say, but my real quote I wanted to say is, S happens. And just get over it, you know? But I decided that wasn't going to work, so I had this, you know, made up on that. So, that'd have been on. Yeah, that'd have been on. That would have been on that.
Hey, Trevor, can we get a picture? Everybody up here in our
Okay, great. All right, come on. So,
Crowd in, second row, all that stuff. Okay. Short in the back, tall in the front.
just make sure this wasn't the governor's any wrong way.
What we should do is do that.
I'll hold this up on the front here.
Well, if I get up front and back, up here.
One turn around, one front.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, come on up here, folks.
Y'all are crazy.
See, I've done this enough with Trevor. I know what the drill is about how to get this to work.
All right.
Somebody got the back shown?
Want to turn around?
No, now we're going to turn around.
Oh, be careful when you turn around. All right, turn around the back. All right, here we go. I'm still going to focus. I'm going to stay focused. The one was before, and now this is the after shot.
All right, heading down the highway.
All right, thanks, guys. That is very nice. That is classic.
Definitely would put that second quote on for nothing.
Yeah, that's right.
We should have had it on the front.
We weren't aware of it.
One of my hobbies is playing the guitar. One of my favorite, obviously, groups is the Eagles, and they have a song called "Get Over It." You know, but it has a lot of lyrics in there, but I can't sing in public. But it's anyway. So, yeah. But thanks, thank you very much. And I think, you know, quite frankly, that you know, we have put it out there and say this is the money and here are the consequences. It's not good or bad. It is what it is, though, and that stuff. So, I was reading. I mean, fortunately, you didn't put a picture of the state plane on there. Thank you for not doing that. On that stuff. Yeah, on that.
Couldn't get a picture of a jet.
But I know, that's right. I did get I was reading some of the comments in that, and I was critiqued on my grammar, and I'm sure I could be critiqued on that quite a bit, and that's in there. So. But, okay, well, look, he should be here in a few minutes, so I'm going to go back there and make sure that he's all taken care of.
What are your thoughts on where we go with the metro?
Maybe I can text Jake.
No.
Actually works well.
Yeah, yeah.
Not delivered. That's good.
Good. A little busy right now. I see your BRT coming online pretty quickly.
Well, BRT. From June.
Yeah.
Still discussing.
It's the River City Strategies Month.
Shannon.
Yeah, I'm sure. How can I have not heard of it?
SCANA, which is the South Carolina, it was the largest merger in the company's history. It's about a 14.
Cooper is the co-op.
Santa Cooper is the co-op. And the,
Take you 28 miles to get here. That's bullshit.
Is he auditing his expense report over there, Court?
14 miles away from downtown. Really?
you missed that.
What happened? They just overspent those nuclear.
Well, yeah. Essentially,
plane.
the project kind of got, just like what we do here, right? I mean, you think here's the expected budget, and it grows on what happened because these are so long.
They slept more than a month.
Get to redesign.
It's just hard to
All
believe.
of a sudden, you start having cost overruns. You got crews. You can't let the crew grow because if the crew grows and mobilizes somewhere else, getting them back is hard. And they determined that it was going to run up to probably closer to 20 billion.
We could do this in formal session, but I think it'd be better to discuss it in the workshop once the governor finishes. So I'm gonna, I think that's better.
It was going to cost twice what they expected.
All right, let me go see where he is.
Pulled out. So SCANA had to make a choice. Because, I mean,
I was thinking about
the argument is they could have, but they probably didn't. They're already in the same footprint. So that was probably a...
You gonna read it? Yeah, I want to read it. Because probably half of it's made up, half of it's probably got a big grain of truth in it.
Also, the other
It's just read, just to read all the words. That's somebody that you favor and use.
we're reaching Carolina and Texas and putting all these resources in states where they really didn't have a chance and they should have known that. Didn't do a damn thing in the West South. I don't understand. How could they, all those brilliant people, how could they
Right. And this is a 4,000-hour life. I don't want to put it to compromise.
So you'll never touch these engines again.
No.
They ignored Michigan, Wisconsin.
So the question will be, someday you're up and that engine starts to have a problem. You think, I got 200 grand extra in the bank. Is it worth it? Between them one, how much is it worth?
I think Bernie.
Yeah, that's...
Given what I just saw in these house races, Bernie would probably.
Yeah.
It's just she was so soiled.
She was lightning rod.
The party felt like they had to give it to her.
In my mind,
Cost her a
I'm
lot.
not going to like that.
And she,
You'll always be thinking.
I'm always going to be
What's that $70,000?
well, I mean, it's a shame we didn't have some.
I'm just right. I'm just saying, I've exposed myself to higher probability of injury.
But it was a coronation from the beginning.
Absolutely.
They got what they deserved.
Exactly.
Unfortunately,
That's the truth of what it is. As we build it, we get our shoulders to pay for it, we go borrow the money, and then we go ask the commission for recovery. Well, what happens
Can we
is
have 3
you
more
can't do that with this size project. So they went out, they got legislation that said they can recover real time. They've already been recovering.
you want to lose another person. Keep shooting
Infrastructure to
morning.
Good morning. How y'all doing? I'll be quiet. Good morning. How y'all doing? You fired up?
We are. Good to see you.
You got out of bed, Michigan, Ohio today.
I'm going to give you a formal introduction, but thanks for coming here today. You know, one of the things that's pleasing to me is one of the first major announcements Governor McAuliffe made was a transportation announcement when he came in office 4 years ago, and he's going to have a chance to make another one as we leave office on that. But let me just tell you a little bit about the opportunity to work with Governor McAuliffe the last 4 years. And I can truly say he has worked every day to build the new Virginia economy, and what really resonated with me is he's a lifelong entrepreneur, and he brings a common sense business approach to the position of the Commonwealth's chief job creator. And being on the business side, it's really all about results, and they speak for themselves. Since the start of his administration, the number of jobs has increased by more than 200,000 and climbing, Governor. He's closed over 1,100 economic development deals with a record break, and it's over 20 billion, 32 million, I think, in that regard. And
well, we're not here at the state of the Commonwealth, so keep it quiet till tonight.
Okay, yeah, nobody else knows about it. Right. All right. That's $6 billion more than any other governor, and more.
6.5.
That's right, isn't that? The unemployment rate, which is really what's important to our citizens, went from 5.4% when he came into office in January 2014 to 3.7% today. Remarkable. That's the fourth lowest of any major state. What I've also been extremely proud of, he's worked across the aisle to support reforms in transportation, which you guys had a big deal about, but he's also revolutionized education, and really what's important, protected Virginians from gun violence and really respecting the rights of all our citizens. Through his efforts, he's made Virginia a national leader in a variety of issues. As the chairman of the National Governors Association, he made cybersecurity his signature initiative, and I'm not sure it was on the map in Virginia much before you came governor, but now you're recognized across the country, and you're the Cyber Governor of the Year. You were named, the governor was named the 2016 Bio Governor of the Year, and I know we weren't even in the game before you came in the office, Governor, up there, by the Biotechnology Innovation Organization, and twice elected chairman of the Chesapeake Bay Executive Council. And really what really speaks, I think, a lot to his overall effectiveness is in 2017, he was named the Public Official of the Year by Governing Magazine. So he's been nationally recognized for his work on these, but most importantly on restoring civil rights and voting rights more than any other governor in history. Not just in Virginia, but in history, any other governor. And he's made Virginia an open place to do business, and a lot of that has to do with transportation. So I'm very proud to announce the 72nd governor of the great Commonwealth of Virginia, His Excellency Terry McAuliffe. Governor, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Let us hear for the greatest Secretary of Transportation in Virginia history. And I tell you, he's going into a new job as the Secretary of Finance, and what you'll also hear tonight, believe it or not, is that I've just announced our revenues for the first 6 months of this year. Believe it or not, we are up 5.9%. Something, Virginia, this is just unheard of, and it was 4 years ago when I came into office. We inherited the largest deficit in Virginia history, $2.4 billion when I took office, and we're now leaving with the largest surplus in Virginia history. So we're leaving you in good shape, buddy. And I want to thank all of our team here. I want to thank Grinley and Nick, and I want to thank Charlie. I want to thank Jennifer, everybody who has made this possible. When I ran for governor, I talked about economic development. That's why I ran for governor. We need to focus on jobs. As you know, Virginia had been hit hard. We lost $9.8 billion on sequestration 11 through 13. Mary, you know very well what happened. Darlington and Alexandria and Fairfax and Loudoun really hurt our communities. When I took office the year before I became governor, we had only created 1,300 jobs for the entire calendar year of 2013. We'd had 16 days of a federal government budget shutdown. We caused us tremendous amount of angst. We had to build that new economy. And as the Secretary mentioned, we're a different state today. Over 200,000 new jobs. We're structurally full employment now in Virginia. Unheard of. My problem now is I have so many open jobs I got to fill, 36,000 cyber jobs, starting pay $88,000. Parents, pay attention. As I always say to my children, you know, my daughter Dory, I love her, my oldest, she's been in Africa saving elephants for 3 years. God bless her. Couldn't you have taken one cyber course? But no, I think it's, but she's back, and now she just decided to go in private equity in New York, so who knew? They all come home, I guess. But I got to tell you, it has been a great renaissance here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. That's why we put $1 billion into education, the most we have ever done in Virginia history, redesign our education system. But a huge part of that, as you know, was transportation. I don't have to tell anybody in this room. We were at gridlock, those in Northern Virginia, specifically those in Hampton Roads, those out in the Roanoke region didn't have access to rail. I mean, we just had to open up our communities. Having lived in Northern Virginia for 25 years, I mean, 66 was just a plain parking lot. You couldn't move on it. Businesses weren't going to come. It took you an hour and a half to go see your kids play a ball game. You can't recruit businesses to come to it. So we said that we would open up our communities, that we would focus on transportation. And I want to thank all of you in this room for the great work that you have done. We put a marker out there. Think big, take chances, don't be afraid to fail. I told you at our first meeting, I'd rather have you try something new and fail than not try something new at all. And you've all responded to it. The great work that you have done, I cannot thank you enough for it. We've responded, totally transformed our P3 process. I mean, if you remember when we came into office, we had that horrible Route 460 deal. We lost $300 million on a road to nowhere. A permit had never even been applied for. Now, maybe we were going to get a permit over 400 acres of wetlands. Maybe we would be the first and only state in America that would have happened. But in order to get the permit, guess what? You got to apply. And we'd already spent $300 million. Not a shovel had gone in the ground. So we stopped that, and through some very gentle persuasion, we got about $150 million back. Remember when the Secretary and I had the meeting with the company, and we said, this is fine, you can keep the money. However, you will never do business ever again in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And as the chairman of the National Governors Association, I'll let everybody know what a horrible company. Well, good enough. They quickly came to the table, and we had a very good, amicable, and we've moved forward together. Just gentle persuasion on the things that we needed to do. But the great work that you all have done, as I say, on the P3 process, putting the smart scale process together so we don't have these political roads. There are no political roads in Virginia anymore. That is really truly something astounding. I could call the Secretary today and say, I'd like a road. He'd say, good luck. Go build it yourself and pay for it yourself, because it has to go through metrics, which is how it ought to be, and which is good. We took the politics out of it, and you all stood here and you made great changes. But just look around the Commonwealth today, the couple $100 million we now have in improvements in 81 of those in Hampton Roads. I promised all of you that one of our first priorities would be to open up 64 and to have lanes all the way added from Hampton Roads to Richmond. We have done that and are continuing to do that. And I got to tell you, last night I was at an event, and at least 6 people from Hampton Roads who'd come up, they've already said they've knocked 20, 30 minutes off driving up just of the improvements we have made today, which is great. The high-rise bridge that we're doing, the new tube in the tunnel, which is going forward. I mean, it really is transformative to open up that community for our military, our port. As you all heard me talk about, our port had been put up for sale, the dumbest decision I have ever heard. We had one of the toughest meetings in the governor's office is when they came to brief me when I was governor-elect. And as you all know, one thing you never do is lie to me. And they were not honest about their financials. They had not reported that they had not met their debt covenants, and I was pretty angry. And so we got rid of that board. And now look at it today. They'd lost money for 5 straight years. We took the port off the market. We invested $670 million. We've made money for 3 straight years. And now the biggest ships in the world are now coming to Virginia. And we just met one of the big Panamax ships that came through. I mean, these ships are enormous. They now come through the new canal. They're all loaded down. They come to Virginia, and then they drop off their containers. The ship rises out of the water, and then they go to those dinky ports in Baltimore and New York and the other places that can't handle it when they're fully loaded up. But I mean, what a turnaround for the port, and it really is something truly extraordinary. And 29 in Charlottesville have been going on forever, contested. We fixed that. And in Northern Virginia, I got to say, with Hampton Roads are probably our greatest accomplishments of what we were able to do. Adding new lanes up there on 66 inside the Beltway, you could not move on inside the Beltway. And for 30 years, it was impossible to get a deal with Arlington County. We finally got a deal done, and it's working just as we said it would work. I think the average toll now is
$10.63.
$10.53, when we said in the legislation that all the elected officials stood with me, and as I signed that, all happy, it was supposed to be 17. So we're, almost $7 less than we had originally said, and the speeds are up 20 miles an hour, and finally we've actually done something about transportation, and we've given people choices. And then outside the Beltway on 66, just an extraordinary deal. We saved the taxpayers $2.5 billion, not a penny of taxpayer money going into that, 10 beautiful new lanes being built. Extraordinary what we're able to do, and then they wrote us a check for $570 million on close. That's how we like to do our deals, and we've continued to do other work, and that's why we're here today to announce that we are now going to do the extension of 95 down to Fredericksburg. We're going to 10-mile extension. I want to thank Transurban, who has come to the table, and if you remember the original deal with Transurban, we were able to share in profits, but it was way down the road, 30 years. I won't be alive probably at that point, maybe, 90, I'll probably be around kicking, I guess, but that is a long way off, and we've changed that, and they are now writing us a check. They are doing the extension. No taxpayer money will be used on it, 10 miles to open up that gridlock, and Transurban is writing us a check for $277 million. Let us all give Jennifer a great round of applause. Stand up, Jennifer. All right, folks, the $277 million, and give her a round of applause. Are you crazy? So it's an exciting day for us. We're going to see that money now, and I do want to recognize our new Secretary of Transportation. I want to thank you, Shannon. Governor-elect Northam could not have picked a better choice. The good news is you're coming in on a great foundation, and literally to take it to the next level. We still have always more to do. As Jennifer and I have long talked about, more rail capacity, opening up Amtrak, getting more people. I mean, the goal is to get folks out of the cars. We have now a very strong program on the table for the legislators to deal with WMATA. We have to deal with WMATA. This is such an economic engine for Northern Virginia. Enough of the politics. It's time to do the right thing. We in Virginia have put up dedicated funding, and now we need to make sure that we see it through. So with about 76 hours to go, I started in this job talking about jobs and transportation. I'm leaving this job. I still have 3 more jobs announcements to make by the time I leave, believe it or not, at 12:32 on Saturday. As soon as Ralph takes the oath, I quietly ride off into the sunset.
Fly off.
I don't think many people believe that. And I'm not getting back on a horse, I can tell you that. But finally, I just wanted to be here today and say thank you. One of the great pillars, and we have our new 4-year report out. I mean, the good news is we have so many firsts, as the Secretary mentioned, on job creation, economic development, restoration of rights, education funding. But at the top of that is transportation. And we are a different state than we were 4 years ago, and you all made that possible. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you to all of you. On behalf of the 8.5 million citizens of this great Commonwealth, I thank all of you for your dedication, your service, the time you have put into this, the public hearings that you have had to attend. Thank you. I don't have to do it. You do, and I thank you for that. And I just cannot tell you how proud I am. And as governor, this has been the greatest honor of my life, to be the 72nd governor of the great Commonwealth of Virginia. And because of your efforts, you've even made me prouder. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless this great Commonwealth. Thank you.
Before you leave, Governor, we want to express our gratitude for your leadership. None of this would have happened if you wouldn't have steadfast, had our back. As you know, these were certainly difficult things to reach compromise on, but you were always there for us. That wouldn't have happened without the political leadership and the other leadership that you showed. So thank you very much, because you were the reason why we were able to accomplish all this. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Love you.
Okay, I wanted to read this in session because I wanted to go through this in a little more detail. One of the things that the governor didn't announce was that this will now fund, as part of this project, the northbound Rappahannock Bridge. So that means both the southbound and northbound bridges will be built. And over and above that, there will be roughly still $235 million, $232 million that will be left for the board to use in terms of other enhancements in the corridor. So I want to make sure that you understand that that bridge is in, it's really two parts. The FredEx part of the 10 miles where Transurban's building, and also that freed up the money because of the negotiating with them to do that second bridge, the northbound Rappahannock Bridge, and leaves us $32 million for you to look at. What is considered one of the most, by NRICS, one of the most busy and congested corridors. So with what else we're doing with our partners on Transurban there, the 2-mile extension that's just been done, and VDOT, this should give that corridor the resources to finalize the major improvements that are needed in the corridor. So it is a major improvement. As you know, been a lot of noise about the northbound bridge, but we never said it wasn't a good project, but in smart scale, there were other projects that were competing. By law, these monies have to stay in the corridor because by the toll payers, so that now leads us, we found a way by being innovative and working with Transurban to get that done. Now, I want to point out to you that it was two parts, and that's why I want to spend a little more time because I want Charlie to have a time to speak. The actual deal that is the 10 miles, VDOT was heavily involved in and worked through and did, I think, a very good job of negotiating, getting that done. The other part of the deal, that is the permit fee or revenue sharing that relates to the other corridor on 95. VDOT was not involved in, and I'm going to let Charlie speak to that. Quite frankly, as the governor said, there is substantial monies in the future that potentially could be available, but we thought it was in the Commonwealth's best interest, the governor's office, the secretariat, to monetize those to be used on transportation sources today. I did not think it was appropriate to put VDOT at the end of an administration in that position to have to make that decision. Because when we came in, VDOT took a lot of grief for some deals that were done that I believe they were directed to do, but it was only their signature on the deals. And so, Charlie, with that, I'll turn it over to you a little bit if you want to comment on that. Because I've now, Charlie has written me a letter saying, and I'll let him say what it was, from his position. What I have done is said, okay, I understand and accept it, and on behalf of the Commonwealth, I'm instructing you to sign this part of the contract, knowing full well that you were not involved in it. So, Charlie, you turn that over.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Again, in terms of this project, I think let me start with reiterating what just happened, that we have now funded the extension of the express lanes to the Rappahannock River without the Commonwealth contributing towards the construction cost of that facility. Early on, when we were working on the FredEx, the Atlantic Gateway, we'd anticipated about $85 million needed in public funds in order to deliver the extension of the express lanes. The agreement that we have accepted, that I have accepted on behalf of the Commonwealth, does not require any public funds for the construction of that extension. Later on today, you will vote on the approval of a contract to rebuild or to, improve the southbound I-95 from Route 17 to Route 3, one of the most congested segments of one of the most congested corridors in the country. That project, again, will be before you for award. And also today, as the Secretary announced, because of us not needing to fund the southbound project as part of the at Atlantic Gateway, there are now funds there, as well as the funds by advancing this permit fee to deliver the northbound Rappahannock River crossing, which is, frankly, nearly as congested as the southbound. So with the combination of these projects, we now have fundamentally extended and improved I-95 from the Pentagon to south of Route 3 in Fredericksburg, a tremendous achievement that was, I guess the best way I can describe it, dead in the water 4 years ago. There was no momentum, there was no path, there was really, frankly, in many folks' eyes, little opportunity to make this happen. So 4 years later, that's where we are, in a much, much better place in a transportation perspective than we have been. As the Secretary mentioned, there were really two parts to this proposal. One was the physical construction of the asset, and the second was the advancing of what's called the permit fee, but it's fundamentally a potential revenue sharing that would occur at some point in the future. Today, VDOT we're not sharing in the revenue coming off of the express lanes, but it's anticipated based on modeling and other things that at some point in the future there would be revenues. And so what this proposal from Transurban does is, instead of that potential revenue in the future, it provides an amount of money today that will be available both over the next several years, and when this goes into revenue operations, the funds for this. The challenge is that this is it is a projection, and whether you're buying stock or investing in a company, you may be able to say it's very difficult to say what the future value of something is. And for VDOT and my staff, it was difficult for us to place a value on this revenue stream. I will tell you that much of this revenue stream is anticipated to occur decades from now. So it becomes even more difficult. My crystal ball takes me through Saturday, and not much further than that. And frankly, we just don't know, with technologies, with driver behavior, with growth patterns, we don't know what the world looks like 10 years from now. So again, from VDOT's perspective and from my perspective, I just did not have the information to say that this amount of money today is the right number. And again, it's not about, that's really as complicated as it got. There are a number of different revenue projections that take you sort of all over the place, and all of them are frankly just an analysis and a bit speculative. But with that, as the Secretary said, VDOT is responsible for delivering projects and maintaining the system in Virginia. And in the past, there have been often times where VDOT has been blamed, chastised, the scapegoat for decisions made by administrations. And I very much appreciate the Secretary and the Governor recognizing that that's just frankly not right. And he has heard our position, our concerns, and on behalf of the Commonwealth, the Secretary has asked me to accept the proposal, which I have, and now it's time to deliver some projects, and for you all to figure out what else, other projects you want to do. Now, I have some opinions on those, and I'd be glad to, especially Saturday at, what was it, 12:33 p.m., I would be glad to give you my opinion on how you could use that money. But I also recognize, and I think this is important, the role of the Commonwealth Transportation Board. The funding and the funds flow through this board, and you project those into the agencies to deliver projects. And I think that's very important to remember, that VDOT does not fund these projects. The Commonwealth Transportation Board funds these projects and turns to VDOT or to DRPT and says, deliver these. And I can tell you with great confidence that we will exceed your expectations in the delivery of whatever projects you would like for us to build. So with that, Mr. Secretary, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Charlie, and he's explained it well. Let me, this is probably one of the first actions that I've taken. It will be in my new role as Secretary of Finance, and that's one of the things that's asked me to look at is where there are financial decisions that the finance plays a greater role. And Charlie's right. I did not think it was fair for him and VDOT to be either blamed or whatever for this decision or in that. So what we really have here is a minority position. We have the ability to possibly get some monies in the future, and depending on what model you run, that can run into billions of dollars or zero, depending on what discount rate and what your assumptions are. As Charlie mentioned, out right now it looks pretty good for that to kick in a few years. But on the other hand, as he said, the crystal ball. Excuse me. The crystal ball is such that we thought that there was an opportunity here to move some, excuse me, of these monies forward to be able to deliver construction of today. Because one of the things that we never evaluate is the benefit for infrastructure built today versus in the future. Now, Charlie mentioned this was a proposal, but this was a negotiated proposal, and without getting into all confidential, I think Ms. Almond would say it was not the first proposal they presented to us that we accepted in that regard. So it was negotiated, and fair but difficult negotiations because it gets back to their fiduciary responsibility, and without being they're a good partner, but it is her job to make sure she maximizes the return to her people, and that sometimes doesn't always relate to the same thing for the Commonwealth. So we evaluated the income stream, and that's really what it is. And it's not like a stock, though, and this is a managed asset depending on travel and all that. And after negotiations, determined that the $277 million was a fair value for what would be potentially to us in the future. We won't know if we've made a good deal probably for about 20 years in that regard. But I do know in the interim, we will have built some very critical infrastructure that we couldn't have built. And we still maintain a very good relationship with our partners there. I'll also mention this was not negotiating from a new deal. This deal was in place. Certain parties had certain rights, and based on that, we believe this is a good value for the Commonwealth. I have talked with the money committees. They have been briefed. Nick did that yesterday. We've talked to our two members here, Mr. Malbin and Mr. Kasparis here. And while we did not need their approval, we wanted to make sure they had a chance to weigh in, to make sure that, at least without not in the details, but in the concept of where we were going here. I will point out, though, we do have an upside guarantee if, in fact, these things exceedingly go out beyond anybody's expectations. There still is an opportunity, if that happens, for the Commonwealth to participate. But what this does is it gives us the money now. It lets our partners, they're free to run their business during the terms of the contract that they've signed. And I'm sure I'm going to get the question, well, they're going to make money, and my guess is they absolutely are. But they were going to make money anyway. I mean, that's what it is. And I believe that from the Commonwealth's perspective, for us to have this $277 million to offer this infrastructure on this particular area, 95, and what it does, and If you now look at 95 and 66, those quarters, substantial billions of dollars of now improvements are not just being talked about, they're going to happen. And above that is Ms. Valentine will now, Secretary Valentine will lead you through a discussion on where to spend $232 million in that quarter, which was monies that we would not have had. They would have been fighting against, competing against Smart Scale. So, it is the administration's decision, and I certainly respect VDOT and did take into account their concerns and their very constructive comments in these negotiations. I want to make this clear. This wasn't, but felt like that was something that we should take responsibility for, and that's why we made this deal. And I'm looking forward to getting this infrastructure built. So with that, I'll turn it over to any questions that the board may have or comments about how this process is. And I wanted to be very public. This is not these negotiations have been going on a long time. So this is not something that to get a press release by the end of the administration. And by the way, you know where to find me. It's not, we're not, unlike the governor, I'm not riding off into the sunset in that regard. So I want to make it clear this was not pressured from the administration to get this done before I left. This is simply happened to be in the last week of the administration where it came about. So with that, happy to take any of your questions or comments or in that regard. Yes, Hap.
I just want to thank you.
Like I said, there's been a lot of press up there, and it just didn't come about of that press, but y'all didn't let us forget what was going on up there in that. But as I'll hold the shirt up here, limited reach do have consequences, and while that was a much-needed facility, there were many other things in the Commonwealth also that we're competing against, and now because of what's happening there, we're able to deliver it. And so when you factor in delivering, I don't know what that's worth. Now we're factoring in something that probably wasn't going to be delivered, if it was going to be delivered 20 years from now. And if you get into the discount factor, I do know that we would have never kept up with the cost of construction based on what we might have gotten in the future out of this deal. Now, you can talk about what the right numbers are, but I looked at it more from an arbitrage situation on delivering that infrastructure versus keeping up with it and maybe getting something, not in absolute dollars, but in today's dollars and today's needs in the Commonwealth on that stuff. So we'll get that. Now it's VDOT. We'll have this to get in procurement and get started on delivering that, working with our partners at Transurban. Any other comments or?
Mr. Secretary.
Oh yes.
In thinking about this particular project, I've lived in Virginia my entire life. I've traveled the 95 corridor my entire life since the days of a Ford Fairlane station wagon with no air conditioning, riding facing backwards in the way back, and not really. More sitting than driving, as I recall it. And I spoke with my dad last night, who's lives down in North Carolina now, about that. And for decades, I have sat and suffered in traffic on 95. I may, a week or two from now, be sitting in that same traffic as my new job, wherever that may be. But I think about this Rappahannock River crossing. In 1994, in Fredericksburg, working on the outer connector and the projects in Fredericksburg, this issue has been around since at least that long, trying to find a way to improve the connections and the access between the Route 17 and Route 3. It has literally been since 1994 that VDOT and the region and others have been trying to find a way to improve, to open up that bottleneck, that hourglass that occurs right at the Rappahannock River. If you think about the Rappahannock River, the only way to get across the river from King George to Culpeper is through the city of Fredericksburg. And the only high-capacity facility between those 2 points is I-95. The others are frankly local roads. And so today, this project finally, you know, as I leave the commissioner's office, I think back about, okay, I got one. I've been working on this thing since 1994. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Allman, would you like to say anything? I know you've been sitting out there and very much appreciate your help. Is anything you'd like to address the board with, or? Sure, please come on up, yeah.
I'm Jennifer Allman. I'm the president of Transurban US. Mr. Secretary, Ms. Secretary-elect or Secretary-designee. I just will quickly say, I think the Secretary and the Commissioner have talked about the benefits of the project. And I just want to thank you very much for your partnership and tell you how much our team is committed to doing everything we can to be able to get people moving in the 95 corridor. This is among the very worst stretches of highway in the United States of America, and I really have to commend the Governor and the Secretary and the Commissioner and their teams for their willingness to look at all resources available and put the best of the both private and public sectors together to be able to deliver relief now. This team is just unwilling to say, we're going to let commuters sit on 95 for a few decades and see how it goes. They're saying, you know, we want to guarantee that we have funds coming in the door to be able to move meaningful improvements forward. It is, on behalf of the Transurban team, our honor to be able to work with you, to be able to enable these improvements. We're going to support thousands of jobs in the construction of these improvements, and we know continue to support the prosperity of the greater Fredericksburg area and the 95 corridors. We continue our partnership. So thank you very much for your confidence in our team, and again, we're committed to ensure a safe and on time and successful delivery of these improvements and a much improved trip for all of you coming from the north to Richmond. So thank you very much. And again, while I have the microphone, I do want to say, Mr. Secretary, it's been a real honor and pleasure working with you, and Commissioner Kilpatrick, you as well and your team, and we are sad to see you go and wish you very well in your next adventure on 95, we hope. Thank you.
I think this brings you to $1.3 billion in investment of your monies there. I think something. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, but coming out, yes. So, and I also want to point out we did characterize this as a proposal from Transurban, but we actually were the ones that initiated just for the initiated looking at the permit fee. So I don't want they were trying to get, they were not. This was something that we initiated, and so it was some very fair but some very difficult negotiations that took place between here. And I know you at least in Australia once during them, because when you called me from over there. So in that, so I believe it was something where both parties had something that they could benefit from, and I believe the citizens will be the ones that really win from this new infrastructure. It's going to be. And by the way, those bridges aren't tolled, are they, Charlie? No. Yeah, that's right. Just the express lane. So, okay. Well, you now know all the what's behind it, and I want to thank again Governor McCullough for his leadership in allowing us to be entrepreneurial and innovative like this, and standing behind us, you know, in that regard. So, all right. With that, then we will now called to close the workshop session and move right now into the formal session, the action agenda items. The first thing up is for public comment. I don't see anybody signed up, but I know Mr. Pollard was here. But anybody would like to speak to the board could please come up, and if you'd like to address us at this time, it'd be great.
Good morning, Trip Pollard with the Southern Environmental Law Center. I did not bring T-shirts, nor do I have a massive contract to announce. But I did in just a few minutes, also I hate following the governor, but in a few minutes just wanted to say a little bit at this point as we are wrapping up this administration and looking forward to the next one. We've made enormous progress in Virginia, I think, in the past 4 years under any possible yardstick in transportation. Just a few very quickly, the smart scale innovation is a nationally recognized model and approach. We work in 6 states, and I can tell you we get inquiries all the time about what Virginia is doing and how can we do something like this in our state. The P3 reforms have been enormous. This administration inherited a bunch of messes. Some projects that, as you all know, I worked on and opposed for many years. And with bipartisan support, the PPTA has been immeasurably strengthened. The guidelines have been improved. We've just made tremendous progress in this area that's critical to Virginia's transportation future. And then on particular projects, 66, obviously there's a lot of controversy right now about some of the tolling, but overall it's a project that makes a whole lot of sense and an approach that is long overdue. I think there's some room for some tweaks, but I think it's an enormous positive step in the right direction. And 29 solutions, as the governor mentioned, an area where things have been at loggerheads for decades. I hate to tell you how many years of my life I've been working on that. But yet we've come to an agreement with the communities, and we've put on the ground projects that have made an enormous difference. They've been cheaper, more effective, and more successful than I think anyone thought possible. So we've learned a lot and we've made a lot of progress. I do think we have, as we look ahead, some challenges. We've heard about some of these yesterday and going forward. The metro funding, transit funding are enormous challenges to the future of the Commonwealth. As we're seeing in the General Assembly and elsewhere, a lot of people are pushing for other projects to be sidestepping smart scale in some way or other. I think this administration, incoming administration and outgoing, need to be steadfast in opposing that. And I think this board needs to stick to its guns on smart scale. It's a tremendous innovation, and we do not want to go backwards. I would say our other biggest challenge we face in Virginia is environment. I would say that's an area where we didn't make as much progress in some ways in the past 4 years. The transportation is the #1 source of carbon pollution in the Commonwealth, and we've got a long way to go to address this and the problems it causes for our communities. And there's a lot of people proposing other projects, specific projects in the General Assembly and elsewhere that you will see that will take us backwards. Won't call any out by name. We'll be talking about those, I'm sure, going forward. So a lot of challenges, but again, I just want to emphasize the enormous progress that's been made and to thank you personally, Mr. Secretary, and your team for all that you have done. You've really set the tone, both in terms of policy reform, but also in terms of your professional approach and your personal integrity, and I cannot thank you enough for that. So thanks again.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Yes, come on up. That's right.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary, members of the board. I'm Lisa Guthrie with the Virginia Transit Association, and I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for everything that you've done, for your leadership in moving us forward over the past 4 years. And we feel like the whole transit community fully recognizes and appreciates your efforts to fully embrace multimodal transportation. And I feel like we've made some true breakthroughs. And we're excited to work with Secretary-elect Valentine and to continue that progress. And as we seek solutions for transit funding to avoid the fiscal cliff and to keep Metro strong, I feel like this is something that we're going to stand with you to promote that in your new capacity as Secretary of Finance, and we look forward to working with you to move us forward and keep us on track. So just wanted to say sincerely how much we appreciate your efforts. So thank you. See you around Capitol Square. All right, bye-bye.
Got to get confirmed, but maybe. That's right. But yes, thank you very much. Anyone else that would like to address the Commonwealth Transportation Board in its public comment period? Okay, seeing none, we'll head right into my final action item agendas coming up here. So first of all is the approval of the minutes from December 6, 2017. Is there a motion? Second, I guess you'll pick one of these. Okay. Any comment or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Next up, we have Ms. Snyder. Is Lori? Yep, Lori's here. Talk about some limited access.
Morning. I have one item, which is a request of a southerly shift of the existing right-of-way and limited access control line of Interstate 66 at the East Falls Church Metro Park and Ride Lot in Arlington County. The department recommends this shift to allow more flexible use of these lands for bus transfer and other public transit purposes. Therefore, I request your approval.
Ms. Hines.
I move approval, sir.
Second.
Any comments or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Ms. Snyder. Ms. Farmer? Yep, there she is, Laura.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For your consideration is a resolution that revises the current fiscal year 18 budgets of both the Commonwealth Transportation Fund and the Virginia Department of Transportation. This adjustment only adds the concession fee that was received as part of the I-66 outside the Beltway project. And with this action, you're then allowed to move forward to allocate the funds to projects. I'll take any questions on the resolution.
Before I ask for a motion, there was, I know, a meeting in Northern Virginia, a public hearing on this. I did receive some comments from those who said that they didn't agree with some of the particular projects. I just wanted to point that out. I did not see any reason to delay this vote, but I wanted to point out that I did receive those and felt it was still appropriate to move this vote forward. So with that, is there a motion?
And Mr. Secretary, okay. This simply brings the funds into the program. There are two subsequent actions recommended to the board, items 3 and 4, that go into more detail on the projects.
Right. But I wanted to get that publicly out there that did receive, and I considered those, but I felt appropriately the board had done its work in making these decisions. So with that, yes, so moved. Is there a second? Any comments or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Oh, Ms. Pryor.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary, members of the board. I have several items for you today. The first item is the allocation of funding from the Transform 66 outside the Beltway concession payment account and the amendment of these projects, of 15 projects, to the 6-year improvement program. And I recommend your approval.
Hines?
Move approval.
Second.
Any comments or further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I would abstain.
Abstained? Okay. One abstention. Okay.
Thank you. The second item is approval and authorization for the Commissioner of Highways to execute a memorandum of understanding between NVTA and the board related to the selection and proposal of projects to be funded with the Transform 66 outside the Beltway concession payment. And I recommend your approval.
I'll move approval.
Mr. Casper, second. Comments or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? One abstention for there. Okay.
My last item is just our normal monthly transfers of surplus funds to scheduled projects. I recommend your approval.
A motion. Second, then. One of the. Okay. Second. Yes. Comments or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And Mr. Secretary, Mr. Commissioner, I'd like to take the opportunity to tell you it's been a pleasure working for you, and thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have Ms. Brown. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I have 2 agenda items for you this month. Action item number 6 is a request to approve this year's revenue sharing deallocation. I presented yesterday that this year we are recommending deallocation of 49 projects representing $15.7 million in allocations. The list of projects is in your packet. All impacted localities have been notified of the deallocation amount, and then these deallocated funds will be made available to allocate for this year's request. We recommend your approval of this resolution.
And a second over here then, yes. Now we're in discussion. I do know Ms. Brown communicated with all the board members and all the participants involved here, so this should not be a surprise to anyone. So,
you're not.
Yeah. Any other, not saying it won't, but it shouldn't be in there. Is there any more either comments or discussion? Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Last year we were not able. Correct. Last year was the first year that we were only able to fund Tier 1.
Other comments or discussion?
Secretary,
Yes.
I just want to comment. I think it's a good cleanup, and putting these funds to use provides, benefit real time and today. So my compliments to those who worked on these modifications.
Compliment, Mr. Whitworth, your committee did yeoman's work there, so thank you. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Ms. Brown?
Okay. Action item number 7 is the resolution to approve an updated CTB policy for the byway designation program. This is a follow-up to a workshop item last month about the byway designation program. And there were a lot of discussion, some questions, and some requests for additional information. In response to those requests, we provided a summary paper to the board last week that offered both a brief history of the program and its creation, several definitions that hopefully clarified some of the terms that are often used for the byway program, a quick summary of the two processes, both the CTB approval process and the General Assembly approval process, as well as responses to a number of the questions that were asked. In response to one of those questions, we did make one modification to the resolution, and that is to add a provision to develop an inspection program to address some of the comments that were made. So I'd be happy to walk through the summary paper or simply address any questions you have.
Is there a motion?
Move.
Get into discussion. Well, is there a second? Okay, now we're in a discussion. Any comments? Yes, Ms. Hines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really want to commend Julie and her staff for listening really carefully to our conversation last time. I think that the changes you've made as a result are wonderful. So I have a small request. In Exhibit A, which is the goals and policies, which will be what VDOT uses to talk to DCR about building out the new MOA. In item D, it still refers to motoring. And in my mind, that's a really outdated word. There are many ways that vehicles in the future can be propelled, and I would suggest that we might want to change that to traveling. So it's, it would read, the route bypasses major roads or provides opportunity to leave high-speed routes for variety and leisure in traveling. And that way we're not hanging somebody else up about our motors even being used anymore for traveling. So that would be just a friendly amendment, I would hope.
I just suggest that in my neighborhood has many scenic roads that most bicyclists that I see or talk to have a copy of our Virginia's Scenic Byway map as their guide to the roads they select. So to Mary's point. And the other thing that we should consider in a multimodal world is we now have some Virginia rail routes that do transit some of the most beautiful parts of Virginia in a very unique way. There's no other traffic on the road, and I think at some point we should consider including the Virginia rail routes as part of our scenic travel experience that brings people to the Commonwealth.
Okay, so is that in the form of a motion to amend?
It was a request for a friendly, I mean, if everybody's okay, it's just a friendly amendment. We don't have to take a vote.
And we certainly would agree that that is a good suggestion. And Ms. Hines did make her comment known to us, and we have provided Carol an updated resolution that does include that amendment.
Okay, so then do we need to take another motion and second for this amendment, or can we just say that we're all good with this friendly amendment? Okay, so we're going to do this with the word motoring be traced to traveling and that. Any other further comments or discussion?
Yes. Julie, the inspection component has been included. Thank you. How does it work its way through the system to determine the frequency and how that system will work?
What I would envision is that we will work with DCR, come up with a proposal, and bring that back to you.
Okay, good.
Other comments or discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Ms. Brown.
And I also would reiterate that it's been a pleasure to work with both of you. Thank you.
Most of the time for you, I'm sure. But it's been a pleasure, Ms. Brown, me working with you. I can assure you that. Thank you. Jennifer.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I have one item for you today. Item 8 is an addition to our 6-year improvement program. It is based on a request from Arlington County. They currently lease property for the storage and dispatch of about half of their vehicles. It's located in Shirlington, adjacent to 395. We currently support that lease with a transit capital grant, so we help fund the lease of that property. The property itself is very advantageous from an operational perspective, and the county has the opportunity to purchase that property as well as an adjacent parcel that would secure that facility for the future, for them to continue to provide service and to grow. And they have the ability to close on that purchase in March, which is why we're bringing a mid-cycle grant to you today. So the total purchase price is a little over $20 million. Under our program guidance, we can fund that at a 34% state share. So the county has requested $6.97 million to be allocated for the purchase of the property. That request can be accommodated within our existing program without impacting any other projects. And we would also be able to deprogram the existing grant for leasing the facility once that property closes. So that's the resolution that we have for you today, and we recommend your approval.
Approval, Mr. Secretary.
Second. Comments or discussion?
Question.
Yes.
Make sure I
Ms.
understand this. So the Arlington County is going to buy this property from the Commonwealth.
No, they're buying it from a private landholder. They lease it now.
They lease it.
And we help them, we help with the lease cost associated with their lease of that property.
Other comments or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Mr. Todd? There. Oh, Jeremy's going to come up. Okay. We lost again last night, Jeremy, and the Rich Spiders lost again. Basketball.
Sorry, sir.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary, members of the board. I have one item for your consideration. That is the statewide intercity passenger rail station policy. The resolution would make this part of the statewide rail plan and appendix to the rail plan.
Is there a motion? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, sorry. Comments or discussion? Yes, Mr. Connors.
Yes, I mean, we would have to consider the impact to the network and the ridership. Nothing to prevent it. Right.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your work on this. I think it's very timely policy, and I think it reflects the success of our intercity rail program. So I think it's very appropriate that we move forward with this. I had reached out to DPR with a modification, and actually in addition to point 5 on page 7 regarding the cost-benefit analysis, and just adding verbiage to ensure that we're looking at the impact of capacity when we do add a new station, that we're looking at the impact of capacity down the road along the corridor to make sure that we're protecting our existing investments that we've already made. And I believe you may have the language in front of you, and I don't know whether this is something we could consider today, just adding by a friendly change if the board is in agreement with it. But I wondered if you could read, if you have that information in front of you, if you wouldn't mind sharing that.
I do, and I have copies I can distribute if you like, Mr. Secretary.
I have no problem with that. No, yes.
So the change will be on page 7 and go over to page 8. It's item number 5 under the factors for consideration. So the first paragraph here on page 7, item 5 says, how will this station affect the total ridership for the route? This first section is the original. It said DRPT will rely on Amtrak to perform a ridership analysis. Amtrak ridership analysis will estimate the total new riders added to existing routes. DRPT may perform a benefit cost analysis to evaluate the net benefit to Virginia from the new ridership added to a route. The new language going on to page 8 that we would be adding says one consideration in the benefit cost analysis will be capacity on the existing route to absorb the estimated number of new riders resulting from the proposed station addition. If capacity were an issue, additional planned train frequencies consistent with the state rail plan should be operational in a timely manner to accommodate new ridership from a new station.
Thank you. And again, this is just there's many components of a cost-benefit analysis, but this is just ensuring that we are looking at the investments we've already made to protect them.
Comments from the board on this particular change, or? Okay, if none, then we'll consider this to be part of the vote that we're speaking on for the policy. Okay, so we do have a first and a second. And so any other comments or discussion?
May I just make a
sure.
comment to Mr. Connor's point that the whole reason
up front. So it doesn't preclude.
Other comments or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Ms. Maxwell.
Mr. Chair, members of the boards, this is a continuation of the policy index cleanup that was initiated at the CTB's retreat earlier this summer. And a vast majority of the policies have been addressed by action you all took in December. As you recall, there were approximately 100 policies and items that still warranted further review and more careful review and analysis. We're now coming to you with a list of 16 items that we would recommend that the CTB repeal, as well as 18 items that clearly we believe warrant retention. So what we're asking is that the items in the list or attachment A1, we ask that you all repeal those. Items in attachment B1, we ask that you retain those. And then several other actions, we'd ask that you direct us to continue to review those remaining policies, which number about 66. So with this action, we've taken care of about a third of those that warrant further review. We'd ask that you direct us to continue to look at those. Then we want to make it clear that the policy index, we have the authority to go ahead and clean up and archive those policies that you were repealing, retain those policies that you are currently asking us to retain in the index. We're making it clear in this resolution that any of the actions taken to repeal today do not affect or the validity of prior actions taken while those policies were currently valid. And then finally, for future reference, we've asked that you direct VDOT in consultation with DRPT to continue this effort on an ongoing basis and to make sure that whenever you all repeal an item or enact a policy that clearly supersedes a prior, that we archive the prior and we place the new item in the CTB policy index. So it's basically forward-looking aspect of this resolution.
Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Any comments or discussion? Ms. Maxwell, I know you guys have been doing a lot of work cleaning all this up, and I think it's a worthwhile endeavor, though. I like the fact you're going to have it historically archived, so if you want to reference it, but it won't be at least, and you can quickly go through that book and understand when you get asked a question. So I appreciate your work on that.
Chair,
Walton,
we appreciate
also you too. Yes,
we appreciate the opportunity to do this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Ms. Maxwell. Let's see, we have Mr. Hoffricker. Good morning, sir.
Secretary, members of the board, good morning. I have before you a discontinuance of primary route 83 in the county of Buchanan. The section is no longer necessary for the purposes of the primary system because a replacement section was built as the road was realigned by a construction project.
Mr. Stinson is not here. Mr. Yates has a move. You also move, okay. Is there a second? Any comments or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Mr. Walton, good morning, sir. Looks like he's anxious to get up here.
I think he is.
That's right.
Cold to hot, no pun intended. He asked that I pinch hit for him today. What we have before you is a resolution designating the managed lane concept for the Hampton Roads Crossing project, which goes from the I-664-64 interchange to the I-64-564 interchange. The resolution would designate the managed concept as hot lanes. It would also say that the toll rates is dynamic pricing and would authorize the commissioner to enter into further conditions with the concessionaire regarding the time of day for the hot lane designation. We would ask for your approval.
Make a motion we approve.
Second.
Second, okay. Any comments or discussion?
Only I wish we'd done it several years ago.
Well, I did want to, this does not include the section that you were speaking of earlier this morning. That's still under study, but this was unanimously adopted by the Transportation Planning Organization down there. So it's broad local support. And I did receive a text just a minute ago, showing an update, and Grinley, you should take a bow for this. It looked like the actual easy pass penetration this morning in AM tolling was 82%. That compares to 83% for the first day in Northern Virginia. So well done to the outreach down there to everybody. That's a big cry from when we opened one of the other facilities down there in that regard. So, and I do believe this will make it much more amenable for other people to use in the other facilities should they hit. So anyway, congratulations, and I think it is a concept that is a wise one based on where we are today with the revenues available to us.
Mr. Secretary, I just appreciate the fact that we withheld you going into action about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, because we weren't quite ready with everything in line to be able to effectively operate the system. And I gather from all the way down through the system of whoever is involved with it, that making that decision, if there's a problem in any way, it's basically held off. So holding off was the right decision to get it right the first time.
Well, Mr. Kilpatrick, he's got a very inclusive team, and it was important that we got this right. And so gotten through a few hours. We'll get through this afternoon, but it looks like from a technical standpoint, it was the right thing to do. So again, congratulations. Oh, other comments or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Mr. Walton. We're not going to, the next one will not be acted upon. That'll be in the future. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. That's correct. That's correct. Will be done in the future because we didn't get to that. So this brings up the V transactions. Mr. Donahue, yes.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I apologize that I was not here in December to discuss this resolution with you. This is a carryover from that meeting. This resolution is really the culmination of the V-Trans process that we've worked with the board over the last 3 or 4 years to undertake. And what this resolution would do would have the board approve the Tier 1 recommendations that we worked with each of you all and your local communities to develop, and would, indicate that as we start to develop the project of pipelines at the state level for future rounds of smart scale, the intent of the board is that we focus on these Tier 1 recommendations. There is flexibility in here if other needs or something should arise over that period of time to allow for, us to move forward if that should take place. There also makes it very clear that nothing in this resolution would stop anyone from ever assisting local governments with applications for smart scale or other grant programs. That's not what this is intended to address. We did have some concerns from some of the districts regarding that, and so we did include those provisions in here just to make it very clear to folks that that is not covered by this resolution. But as we've talked about over the last year, this is really the board putting its stamp on the things that it wants to see us as staff work on in the coming years to develop, the pipeline you see in round 3, 4, and even 5 of smart scale here. This has been led by the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment. We are staffing up that office now, and so you'll see other faces up here, hopefully in the future, talking about some of these items. But I did just want to bring this to the board, and I hope the board would consider it favorably.
Oh, motion. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Moved. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. Is there a second? Second. Okay. Any comments or discussion? Okay. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And Mr. Donahue, I know you were a big part of this morning's event, and not only the negotiations and stuff, but actually getting it organized for today. So that's where he's been doing. Actually, Nick's had the similar experience that I've had, doing a couple different jobs, working for 2 different people during the time here, and he's been trying to get ahead, getting Shannon up to speed, and then finishing up with us. So appreciate very much your efforts, and publicly want to say to you and Grenly, it's been a tremendous honor to work with you guys the last couple of years, and we've done a lot. So appreciate all your help and support.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. All right. Thank you. All right. Next is Mr. Siles. I'm sorry. Yes. Yes.
Mr. Secretary, I wanted to make clear for the record before we talk about the awards. Upon notification that I would not be appointed commissioner, I notified the chief engineer and others that they needed to separate me from active discussions regarding selection of contractors because my future employment may involve working in the engineering, construction, operations, delivery world. And I would just want to say for the record that I was not involved in the scoring or the shortlisting or the recommendation of the award for this particular project or for the other projects that are being brought forward that are under the threshold. Thank you.
All right. Yes, Mr.
Good morning. I have only one project to bring before you today, but it's a very significant project, so significant we spent a good deal of the morning talking about it, and I'm speaking of the I-95 southbound Rappahannock River Crossing project. As you can see from your ballot, we had significant savings, and this ballot only represents a portion of the savings that is close to almost 20% overall. In addition to that, you can see from the narrative this technical score that the low bidder received. It was by far the best technical score, which represents into the best value for the department. So I am happy to recommend award of this project to Wagman Heavy Civil, Inc.
Okay. Any comments or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? All right. Momentous contract there, and now we know the other half's going to get built too. That's the announcement this morning. I believe that gets us into other business, and I did see Ms. Johnson back there. Grenly, can you come up for a minute? I know. I just wanted to recognize you have not been in front of us as much as Nick, but you have certainly been an integral part.
I'm a low-key person.
No, but doing all this stuff, that's right. And I just wanted, in front of the board, to recognize all the work you've done, and very much appreciative working with you, and look forward to still being friends, but just all we've gone through the last 4 years.
It has been an extreme honor to represent transportation. I've had an awesome time, and I'm looking forward to my next challenge and opportunity. And I'm not one of those who kind of fade in the way. I'm going to still be large and in charge and in your life, whether you want it or not. But thank you, guys. I have really enjoyed this pleasure. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. First of all, is there any new business come before the board from the members? Okay, seeing none, I wanted to give, I know Charlie and I will, this is our last meeting, and I wanted to give some time to Charlie to not only for him to speak, but to recognize the magnificent job, I believe, that's happened over the last 4 years under your leadership. And I will tell you, you heard about all this professionally, but there's not a bad bone in Charlie's body. I mean, he's just one good human being. And it's been a pleasure to get to work with and also to become a friend. So with that, Charlie, thank you very much, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. It's been a great ride. And I thought a little bit about my sort of the journey here. 8 years ago, almost exactly 8 years ago, it was a day after an intense snowstorm in Virginia, especially Northern Virginia, that I met with some folks in downtown Washington regarding an opportunity. They came to me and asked if I would consider working in the commissioner's office at VDOT. I can tell you that at the first phone call, I wasn't sure that it wasn't one of my friends pulling one over on me. Because frankly, I had been, for 10 years prior to leaving VDOT, had been a field engineer in Fredericksburg, responsible for maintaining the roadways, for delivering projects, for responding to emergencies. And it was a great, great job that I had there, but very, very far removed, frankly, from what I had always envisioned in the commissioner's office. But fundamentally, my job there was to solve problems, to make things better, and to serve the citizens of Virginia. I mean, that's what it was all about. So 8 years later, I think about where VDOT is today. Every day we're out there maintaining the third largest transportation system in the country. We're delivering projects, and we're not just delivering projects, we're delivering them on time, or ahead of schedule, we're delivering them under budget. We're continuing to exceed the expectations of the public. And we're also responding to those emergencies. You know, we can't resist having a natural or unnatural emergency. We've had a few of them over just this past week and have responded each and every time. But I think about what that really means. And again, it's fundamentally about solving problems, about making things better, and about serving Virginia. Every day, VDOT keeps Virginia moving. And this is really because of the hard work of about 7,700 women and men that work at VDOT throughout Virginia. I've been very fortunate to meet many of them. I wish I could say I've met every one of them, but I probably have not. But it really, you think about who these people are. They're operators, they're inspectors, they're repair technicians, they're buyers, they're trainers, they're engineers, they're administrative support, they're right-of-way, they're scientists, all these types of people at VDOT delivering these services. And if you think about, I think about VDOT in terms of organizationally compared with other state agencies, and I don't believe there's another agency in state government that impacts, as the governor said, there are 8.5 million Virginia citizens. And think about the transportation system. Without VDOT and without the work that we do, those 8.5 million people couldn't get to their jobs, couldn't get things done, couldn't get the goods they need without us. One of the things I've also seen over my time, there has for years been this this feeling of two VDOTs. There's I'll call it the central office VDOT and the field VDOT. And I will tell you that I'm very proud to say that I think the work of this organization has been very focused on erasing that line, that divide. And today I'm very comfortable in saying there aren't two VDOTs, there's just one. There's just one, and everybody in this organization understands the importance of the work that they do. Thinking about the administration and what a great actually a great 8 years it's been. But this last 4 years, thinking about what's going on, you heard today about some big projects and programs and initiatives and things that have gotten the headlines. Also, the smart scale has been a game changer for transportation and for VDOT, as well as state of good repair programs and the funding distribution. I mean, those are truly huge changes for the good for transportation for VDOT. And one of the things I appreciate most, and you heard the governor talking about it, about trying new things, and it's okay to stretch your legs and make things happen. In case you didn't notice, Governor McAuliffe and Secretary Lane only have one gear, and that's fifth gear, and only one direction, and that's forward. and I will tell you that has been a tremendous inspiration and benefit to our transportation system, because we have focused on moving things, making it happen, doing the things that we never thought were possible in time frames that no one ever envisioned. We proved over and over again that we could get it done. But I think about really what VDOT's about, and that's more than anything, these headlines, these new initiatives, these new projects, announcing a new deal is a great thing, but it's really the day in and day out work that goes on in transportation. If you think about this organization, it represents and it's responsible for about $5 billion every year. The board, the General Assembly, and then the board authorizes and allocates those funds for the delivery of the transportation system. But every day our job is not just the big fancy things, but it's keeping the roads in good condition. It's improving the services that we provide and listening to the citizens. And I think that, that this organization, through the great work of the people, have done exactly that. I wanted to thank this board. It has been a great ride. I enjoyed for 4 years sitting in the back, and you know, there's some advantage to sitting in the back. But I have very much enjoyed being directly engaged and a part of this board, and it has been a great 4 years. I think of the many things that we've accomplished and things that maybe we didn't always realize how important they were until some time after. So I'll end with some advice. I have, and I'm going to keep it fairly simple. VDOT is a organization of dedicated people. They're okay with continuous improvement. They're okay with challenges. Matter of fact, they embrace them. They embrace these challenges and will show you over and over again they can get it done. You should expect excellence from them, because I do. But a couple of cautions. What I would say to you, and back to what Governor McAuliffe and Secretary Lane have done, they have not gotten involved in the administrative work of the organization. They have not disrupted the organizational structure. They frankly said, organize it the way you want to and deliver what we want you to do is deliver. And we're not going to tell you how. We're going to tell you what we want, and you get us there. And what that's really allowed us to do is to focus on making it happen. There was about a year ago at an event, there was a Formula One driver, a guy named Derek Daly, and he spoke as a motivational speaker. And the one piece that I really took on and heard from him very clearly, and it talked about the difference between trying to go faster and being fast. And so what I would say to this group and to Secretary-designee Valentine and Commissioner-designee Britch and all those that come after me, that you could spend the next 4 years under the hood trying to figure out how to get another mile per gallon or another some more horsepower out of the motor, and some of that's okay. or you could spend the next 4 years, get behind the wheel, stomp on the gas, get yourself up to 5th gear, and see how much fun it is to go fast. So with that, it has been a great ride. I'm going to take my foot off the gas at 12:33. The governor is running through the tape, and I am chasing him. And so, again, it has been a wonderful, wonderful ride. I appreciate the support that you've given me and the department, and I thank you very much, Secretary Lane, for that call about 4 years ago saying, hey, Charlie, will you be the commissioner? So thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. So again, thanks, Charlie, and wish you the best. And as I think anybody at this table will tell you, if you ever need anything from us, all you got to do is call. So thank you very, very, very much, and best of luck to you. I'm just going to wrap up. We pretty much know what we've done the last 4 years, and it has been a great honor to serve. But what I would say is, and to Shannon and to others, you need to do it your way. That's really what it comes about. I did it my way. I'm willing to take all the responsibility and consequences for the way I did it. I never approached this as a political position, as an, have no desire to run for office. And in fact, don't really care if he asked me not to come back. And I don't mean that to be cynical, because it's been a great honor. You ever watch the show Billions? That show, you ever watch it on HBO? There's a great line in there, and I can't use the actual line. Nick's telling me saying, but he's telling me don't do that. But it talks about when you get to the point in life where you are financially secure, and what freedom that allows you to have when you're financially secure. I won't call it blank money, but you know what I'm saying. And so, but he just, what's the use of having blank money if you never say blank you? So that's the way. That's the way I have approached this, is that I'm doing this because I think I can make a difference. Other than that, that's really what I would suggest in doing this. Never looked at what it meant from the standpoint of personally, or what it meant for one political or another. And not saying it's right or wrong, that's just the way I did it. I think we did get accomplished a lot, but just like there are consequences for limited resources, there are consequences. This is a difficult position, very tough position. You're not going to please everybody. And so what you need to do is keep your principles the way you see them, and do it your way. And I really appreciate all the efforts and the support of the board for letting it do it the way I believe Governor McAuliffe directed me to do it. And getting things done and changing cultures and moving us forward. And it's sort of like, I guess, maybe a more polite way to explain that would have been if I've always heard you're a politician not running again, making decisions as if you're not running again. And that's really the type of attitude, because I never was running, and I don't define myself as what happens here. It's what's really inside and what you think of, what's really matter. Because at the end of the day, quite frankly, and that's one of the reasons I, quite frankly, not wanting to do transportation again, is because when you think you've got it all figured out and you know exactly what to do, then you're setting yourself up for a fall. That's one of the things that hard lesson in life I learned from my mentor, Edwin Joseph, Molly Joseph's father. Whenever you think you got it figured out. So I think it's great, new, fresh eyes looking at this. I do look forward to working for Governor-elect Northam in a new role. I guess the good and the bad is I'm going to approach it pretty much the same way I did this one, and the chips will fall where they may. But I do believe we accomplished a lot. It's been a great honor working with all of you. I can tell you, I came in wanting to use business principles, and I think we've done a lot. But I can tell you, there's been some myths that have been I've seen that were just not true. Charlie mentioned state employees. I've found most of the state employees, very hardworking people trying to do the right thing, and it's really about leadership and making sure they deserve good leadership. Also, this thing about where I'm going to get a state job and I have to work very hard. I've never worked so hard for so little in my life. So I would suggest to you, you got to want to do it and serve for the right, because if you're looking for it, think just to get by, I don't think it's the position. I'm not speaking to any, I'm just saying these are some of the myths I think we've heard. And I'll tell you what will really set in is the first emergency that you have to happen, because a lot of times you see these cabinet positions as, oh, maybe it's a political, you know, it's just about getting legislation passed and whatever. When Shannon's already started doing, you set in on these statewide calls where we've got snow operations or an Ebola crisis or something like that, and then you realize your actions really matter. And you better be doing it what you think is the right thing, and as again, the chips fall where they may in that. So it's been a great honor, and I really think we've accomplished a lot. My biggest fear when I took this job is that the headline would be when I left, well, good thing he's gone, we didn't get anything done. It still might be good thing he's gone, but I think we got some things done in that regard. So thank you all for all your help, and I look forward to staying in touch, although I will tell you, you're not going to get any comments from the peanut gallery, I can assure you. This is passing on the baton, and really believe that do it your way, and Virginia's going to be just great. So anyway, but thank you all very much, and unless there's anything, oh yes, Mr. Whitworth.
You for you. Our Commonwealth and big intelligence. You off this watch. Watch. Recognition. Welcome you. To you, note, I think, that we are
Can't sit next to each other, can't we?
So we welcome you, and we send you all our.
Thank you.
In fact, with that, that's a great way. With that, I do officially want to pass the gavel over to Ms. Valentine and let you, when you finish, give you the floor, and when you upon that, you can adjourn this meeting, and I'm sure it'll be official because it's, that's right, you get that. So anyway, and I wish you the very, very best in your new position.
Thank you. And I'm sorry Gary couldn't be here because we would be.
That's right.
I'm not official. It's very
Yeah. Your plan, yeah.
actually
I stole it, but Charlie came up with it. That's right.
and so, you know, throughout this whole process,
Thank you.
Mr. Dixon. Continuity. The meeting is adjourned.
All right.